talk about what it would be like to live on Mars. And with me here today is Justin Wilkes. He is the executive producer for National Geographic's new Mars miniseries. So please tell me, what do you think it would be like to live on Mars?
What would it be like to live on Mars? I think at first it's going to be pretty challenging for anybody who goes. It's going to be very cold. You're not going to be able to go outside just, freely. You can't breathe the air, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I actually think it's going to be the greatest adventure of mankind, of humankind. It's, I can't think of anything more exciting than the idea of going to another planet, not just to visit, but to stay.
So what would you say would be your inspiration for working on this series?
I think like probably so many kids, I grew up wanting to be an astronaut, and I think probably like anybody who's ever lived on this planet, you look up at the night sky and you see the stars and you wonder, are we alone and what's out there? And there's just this innate desire to want to explore. And then when I started to get a little bit older and I realized what it took to actually become an astronaut, and that probably wasn't going to be in my future, filmmaking was the next logical choice because it enables you to go to different places and go to different worlds and create different worlds, and it was exciting. So I think it's probably been a long time in the making, but the impetus for the series was really born out of a conversation with Elon Musk, which I fortunately found myself able to sit in front of him, and just spending what was probably 45 minutes, I walked out with my mind completely blown, not even aware at all of what was happening today to actually engineer a mission to Mars. I didn't even know that was something that people were talking about. And then suddenly you see it happening. And that was the genesis of the idea for the show.
Okay. So would you want to be on any of the first ships out to Mars, or would you rather wait and see how it goes first?
I think I'd probably wait a little bit to see how it goes, having now like somewhat first-hand experience just in even creating the show and spending time with people like Dr. Mae Jemison and some of our other technical advisors. You get a sense that that first mission is going to be pretty challenging for anybody who goes there, so I might wait a little bit.
Okay. So in creating the show, how did you sort of balance the science versus the creative aspect? And were there ever any sort of conflicts between what is scientifically accurate and what is better for the TV series?
I think we began with our technical advisors over here and the writers and the creative team over here. And then the more they started to talk to one another and they started to understand from the science side that there was a lot of drama that could come from the pure science. And then from the dramatic side, that they could feed off of that drama and actually create a storyline that was probably more dramatic than they had ever imagined it to be. The two pieces really started to come together nicely. And I have to say, and I'm proud to say, that obviously the accuracy was critical for both us as filmmakers, but also for National Geographic. There's probably very few things I can proudly say that anybody will look at and say, well, maybe it's not quite like that. Maybe a couple little things. But for the most part, it's more dramatic because it's based on science.
So what would you say are some of the most challenging parts of creating this series?
There's a large visual effects component to it because we obviously want to show what Mars is going to look like and what it's going to show for people to actually step on the planet for the first time. We worked with Framestore, an amazing visual effects company that's done small films like The Martian and Gravity, and they have a fantastic history of feature films. And for them, getting involved in a project on a slightly smaller screen was a challenge for them. But whenever you're working with visual effects, you have to leave a lot up to your imagination when you're filming it, because there's a spaceship behind you on screen, but there isn't when you're actually there in the first place. So just dealing with that and that workflow was a challenge. But we also tried to root as much of the storytelling in the human experience. That was a big deal also for our filmmaker, Eduardo Gut, where we're not relying on the visual effects, we're not relying on the science and technology to sort of be the dinosaurs spread of, or the big centerpiece. This is ultimately about how humans are going to survive on this planet and the interplay between them based on the situations that they're finding themselves in.
So my last question is, do you have like one particular scene that is maybe your favorite or you thought was the coolest to film that you would be willing to share?
Sure. There's a scene in the first episode where the commander, Ben Sawyer, has to get up because of a malfunction and actually go into the belly of the ship, the corridor of the ship. And we built sort of a nod to Stanley Kubrick in 2001. We built, it's called a gimbal, so it's an entire corridor that can actually rotate. So he's being thrown around in there and it completely throws your sense of gravity off and what's up and what's down. So it was challenging to film, but I think one of my favorite moments.
Cool. A lot of fun. Well, it sounds like the show was a lot of fun to make and that it'll be very cool to watch. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Awesome.
Again,
nice
Justin Wilkes, executive producer for Radical Media, and I am Hanneke Weitering here with Space.com.
Space. docudrama.com.